everybody.
Hello.
I'm Ginger.
I'm Dee.
And this is Chat with CHAP.
Back together
Back
again.
together. It's
Finally.
been at least 3 weeks.
It is. And you know what? It's freezing out.
Cold.
I'm in my sweatshirt. The
I
weather's
know.
changed. It's almost October 1st.
I know.
Well, you know, it's almost October 1st, and so people have been at this homeschooling thing probably for several weeks now.
Yes.
So how's it going?
Yeah, how is it going, everybody out
Yeah.
there? Like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing with this? I mean, new, old, whatever. How's it going on your homeschool?
Yeah, this is the point where maybe are you having any doubts?
Ooh,
having some hard days?
Yeah, your kid's not wanting to do school.
Feeling overwhelmed, maybe fearful, probably thinking, what am I doing?
What did we just
I had
do?
that thought for years, actually. Like, seriously, like it's not
Every
like
fall.
the very first year you do it.
Yeah.
It's almost, it was a couple years of, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah, and sometimes it happens in February.
And there's all this
What?
excitement the first day when you crack that book open for the very
that
first
was
time.
fun.
But like I said,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, I bet the newness. It's your
not
first rough day.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Amanda. It'll get better. It'll get better.
It will get better. Everybody has a bumpy day.
everybody has a bumpy day.
I mean, Amanda, it's you and 3 girls in your house. You've got some serious hormones going
And
on,
that
so it'll
baby
be
boy.
good. And the baby
baby boy. Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah. So just stop and take a deep breath. Remember your goals that you wrote down for the year. Get them out and read them if you need to.
Yes.
Remember sometimes we just need to bring ourselves back to the center of what is really important.
Yes.
It might feel like at that moment your child not understanding fractions is the most important thing in the whole world. But I promise you, long term, overall, that's not the most important thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
Relationships, family,
Yes.
teaching them to love Jesus, that's what's
Yes.
important.
What were your goals? And we've talked about that before in other episodes. So it is so important to know what your motivation is for doing this. Why is it, Mom, Dad, that you are doing this? Why have you chosen to bring your children home? And if you go back to those goals and you can see either they're the big long-term picture goals and you go, okay, I can do this because I want this long-term goal. Or it's those little short-term goals where you're like, okay, we didn't have to, like we said in an earlier episode, you didn't have to wear a mask today. Yes. Or you could write a complete sentence with a capital letter and a period at the end. Yes. So rejoice in those little victories.
And when you are struggling too, it's good to think about what's the root of that struggle. Do you have too much going on in your life at this moment? Is there too much on your plate? Or do you have too high of expectations of yourself?
Yes. Or are you comparing?
Yeah.
Are you comparing? You have a comparing saying. What's your comparing saying?
My comparison's the thief of joy.
Yes.
I mean, I know they say that a lot.
Comparison's the thief of joy.
Yeah. So you have to think about those questions, like why are we struggling? What is the root of it? Because if you're rushing from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, it's not going to make it better.
No.
Working harder and examining yourself will not make your relationships grow and learning happen. Or you're exhausting yourself, I mean.
So if you're exhausted because you're going to this sport and that sport and Awana and whatever else that you're doing, it's kind of like back when we all had to stay at home and couldn't do anything. And I know a lot of people were like, this is good. So just keep that in mind. It's really awesome to be able to go out and about and do your sports and get your exercise or go to Awana. That is amazing, and all those things are so good. But if you pile it all back on, we'll just be right back where we were, exhausted and burned out and not able to think. So it's really that rest. Rest is really important.
It sure is. It sure is. We're always supposed to be working from a place of rest, not resting from our work.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we should be doing.
Yes.
Is just working out of a place of rest with God and our time with, our quiet time and our peace, and work from that, not just constantly trying to take a rest from all of the work.
Yes. And if you're stressed and tense, like, we got to get this done because we're getting out the door in half an hour, that the kids feel that. Like the days when I've done that, like the learning just goes, like it totally tanks. It's just awful because they feel my stress.
Yeah.
And then they get stressed. And then learning just doesn't happen when you're stressed. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for you. It doesn't happen for them. It doesn't happen for anybody.
Yeah.
So if you have too much going on and your timetable stressed, it just falls apart.
And maybe you've hit already the bump in the road of this curriculum is not working. My kids don't like it. I don't like it. No one is learning. I mean, that happens.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah, so it's okay to stop using it. Like, there's so many groups out there, and everyone's still asking, what curriculum are you using for this? A friend of mine just asked, what's an all-in-one language arts? Because what I picked for this year is not working. So she's thinking, she's making a change right now, and that is totally okay. And sometimes you put something down and you don't pick anything else back up. You just put something down because you just need less to do.
That's right.
Oh, Christy posted the other day from her Simple Homeschool book, and she said that you don't have to check off all the boxes on the all-in-one curriculum. And I was like, oh, my check marking hand is shaking.
Yeah. So it's okay. It's okay to reevaluate your curriculum if it's not working. Please don't spend October through next June suffering. Like, don't do that.
And you know what? If it was expensive, you can sell it. You can sell it. I've bought entire sunlight cores on eBay. People do it. You can sell it bulk in places. So if it's something that was expensive, don't worry. There's someone else who's gonna want it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about your kids agreeing with your decision to homeschool? Maybe you're struggling right now because
they miss their buds.
They weren't on board with this
school.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Hal and Melanie Young have a podcast entitled Getting Kids on Board with Your Homeschooling Decision, and you can find it on the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network.
I actually didn't know this existed until very recently, so that's really cool. An Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. So that sounds like podcast heaven. So I did post this earlier on the New to Homeschooling in Pennsylvania group, so you might have seen it before, but I can repost it in our notes then later.
Yeah, but maybe that's just what the struggle is. And so the key is to figure out, okay, why are we struggling right now? And is it the busyness? Is it the curriculum? Is it the kids aren't on board? Like, figure out what the root of the struggle is instead of just burying it and trying
plowing ahead.
And good.
Just keep plowing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's our
guilty.
I'm a plower myself, but it's important that you do that. So also, are your kids arguing about doing their work?
Sometimes they're bored. Sometimes they're bored because they're like, I know this, Mom. Why am I doing this again? Yeah. So the cool thing about homeschool, there's no need for busy work. You don't have to sit there and work for half an hour while the teacher works with someone else. You just move to the next lesson.
That's right. So I know the temptation is, well, the curriculum was laid out and it said today to do this. And so we're going to do it because it says to do it. But if they get it, move on. Now, sometimes it's because they're confused and they don't understand and they're frustrated. And that's the opposite end. And it's another place of frustration. Once again, beauty of homeschooling is slow down.
Totally stop.
Just stop. Slow down.
I did this for the first time this year with our math curriculum. I am such a plower, guys. I'm learning right along with all of you all this stuff that we talk about because it's really hard for me. But I had one that was just not ready to start what I had planned for this year because we were just reviewing and drilling from last year. And now we kind of started up, but we're starting slow, and it's going really well. But it's really, really hard for me to do that. But it's the best thing. It was the best thing.
Trying, once again, to plow ahead where on a topic or a subject or something that a child is having trouble understanding or is confused or is frustrated by, continuing trying to move on is just
going to make it worse. It's going to compile the problem.
Yeah, compile the problem. So it's okay, even though the curriculum said today to do this, to say, no, we're going to go back and review this.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's important.
Take as much time as you need, especially, I'm going to talk about math. Drilling math facts, drill the math facts. Okay? It doesn't matter if that's all you do this year. If your kids know your math facts really well, then they'll be able to balance a checkbook. That's really important.
And that goes back to like the goals of what's really important. And for us, it was love Jesus, that they would work hard and that they would be able to manage their money.
Yeah.
If they could leave us doing those three things, work hard in whatever God called them to do. And some of them went on to further education, and some went right into work. And it's okay. Yeah. When I say that's my goal, then everything I do in my day comes back to that. And so you're right. Math facts are super important. Now, is calculus super important for a child that's not going to college? No. But so, just think about those goals and think about the work that you're doing with your kids within those.
Yeah.
So,
There are some days though where you just have stuff that you have to do that's not fun.
It's not fun.
And that's, some kids don't feel like
It's
reading.
usually for me every day
they
when
need
I
to.
have to wash the dishes from dinner.
So
Not fun.
everybody needs to learn to read. I mean, that's foundational.
Right.
Absolutely foundational. Some kids need to take their time. Sometimes you do need to take your time. Sometimes it's just, let's work through this. Let's work through this. And
I think it's always knowing, it's very important is when you're having a struggle with your child is to really evaluate what is their heart. Are they struggling because they don't understand it, or are they struggling because they're being lazy?
Stubborn.
Stubborn.
Yes.
Like you have to evaluate what's their heart, and if they're really struggling, then that's okay to show a lot of grace and to slow down and whatever. And if they're being lazy, I mean, sometimes we have to just we got to do what we have to do, even though we don't like it. And you're the parent, so you call the shots.
yes,
And
you're the supervisor. That's why you get the little supervisor name tag.
That doesn't mean the kids can't have a say, but ultimately, you're the supervisor.
We call the shots, and we say, you know what, we really just got to buckle down and work on this today.
Right.
And you could give a reward for sticking it out with a good attitude. If you work hard on this with a good attitude, whatever the special cool thing is that your kid likes to do, would be great. But there's just sometimes there's things in life that we have to do that's just not fun.
You can't just make it all
Fluffy.
and because challenges grow us in every age and stage of life. You know what? Homeschooling is challenging, but it's growing you. It really is.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
We don't make life purposely hard.
I'm going to make your homeschool really miserable. No,
we
don't
do that. But sometimes we just need to do things that we don't want to do, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it applies to everything, like chores.
Take out the trash. Yeah, exactly. So, are you fearful, Dee, that your child will have gaps? We've talked about this before.
Have. You know what? And there were a lot of years in the beginning where that was a big panic, that they're going to have a gap, until I realized that all children have gaps. I had gaps in my education, and that's okay.
I think there's a lot of parents that brought their kids home and were like, oh my word, my kids have so many gaps.
Yeah.
And that's going to be true anywhere. Now, there's certain gaps I think really need to be filled, like I said, reading and basic math. Right. Okay? So, but there's going to be gaps elsewhere. And that's okay. So you have to evaluate that too. What's your goal? And there's basic life skills that are so important for just functioning. You can't have a gap there.
And just breathe a sigh of relief that it's normal. Know that God can use them to create growth in our children.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a horrible thing. I mean, God can use them in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the key is not to try to fill every single gap.
Oh my goodness,
you'll
go crazy.
Yeah.
You'll go crazy. And like in our gaps, as homeschool moms, then God filled them as we were homeschooling our kids, or as we grow older, or we find an interest and we choose to fill that gap ourselves.
Right. Teach your children how to learn, and they can, they'll figure things out.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
But not worry about teaching them every single thing. Just teach them how to learn. And and the gaps won't be an issue. So, maybe you are doubting that you can do this.
Year.
Every year.
What day are we on?
I just started my 20th year this September, and I still doubt my ability, but I know that I can, because I know God has a plan for my children, and I'm not big enough to mess it up.
Yes.
And He's called me to do this.
Yeah.
So if He's going to call us to do this, He doesn't
equip
call you to do something and then just be like,
you figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah, you can't do that. He equips us with what we need. He gives us each day what we need to do it.
And even in that, I mean, we're learning as we go along. We're not automatically equipped. I mean, sometimes we got to learn how to do what we need to do as we go along. So I've shared with lots of moms too. Don't be afraid of homeschooling because you don't know everything.
Right.
Learn it with your kids.
That's right.
Just learn it right along, and which is like the really cool thing.
And I think it's tempting for us to keep, because we like to keep control of everything, to keep our eye on the entire year of everything we have to do. And if I look at the entire year of everything that we have to do, of course I feel
Makes me want to cry.
Yes. frazzled, but keep your eye just on today.
Yes.
Like His mercies are new every morning. And so, yeah.
Yes.
So tomorrow has troubles of its own. Don't borrow trouble.
No, don't worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Take care of today, even moment by moment. I mean, just, okay, let's get through this lesson. Take a breather. What's the next thing we can do? And some days it just doesn't get done. Right? And you just let it go.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Yeah.
And then note the
Yeah.
victories, even the small ones. I mean, anytime is a good time to look over successes. And I mean, I'm on the flip side of where a lot of you are, and I'm at the 20-year mark, and my children are grown, and many of them are adults. 6 are adults, 6 of the 7, and 1 more at home. And my daughter got married on Friday, and you know, I walked away from that really seeing how much my children love each other.
Oh.
So it.
And that's it. That's why we do what we do, right?
I mean, it's like,
oh, that's so awesome.
were there gaps? Were there doubts? Were there arguments? Were there hard days? Were there fears? Were there all of these things we just talked about? Yes, there were. But I watched my adult children loving each other really well and loving their sister as she got married, and it was beautiful. And so there are successes, and there's going to be little tiny ones, and you're going to get to the end, and you're going to see some big ones, and it's what will fuel you to keep going. So write them down. You write down the little stuff, you know?
And tell them to your kids, too.
Yes.
Tell them, you know, this is our victory this week. This is what you did.
Right.
I'm so proud of you.
That's right. Your voice creates your children's thoughts, if that makes sense. So it has such a profound effect on what they think about themselves, what they think about their future. So our tendency is to nag on the things that we see going wrong, and we need fixed, and they may need fixed, but that's our tendency. And so a lot of times, a lot of our voice is negative, but it's so crucial to have a positive spin on everything, even the struggles. Like, oh, you're struggling? Everybody struggles with something, but let's do that. You know, it's okay, and let's work on this together and be that cheerleader and that voice of positivity, because your voice becomes their thoughts, and their thoughts create the pattern of, like, as a man thinks, so does he. And so your voice is crucial. It really is. The tongue has the power to speak life or death. And so tell your children when they're doing well, and even in the struggles, find that glimmer of positive that you can spin or that you can talk about.
I did that with one of my kids recently. I was one of my younger ones. I said, look what you did. You just did this, or how much you did, or whatever it was. And she was like, really? Like, even though she's gone through it all and she's got to that place, she needed to be reminded of how much was behind her. And
I think we all need to be reminded of that sometimes.
And mommy noticed it and said something about it. So that's going to stick in there.
It sure does. It sure does. That has such a profound effect on their future. I believe that. And for me, my mom was a very positive person, and she always had this saying: positive attitude, positive result; negative attitude, negative result. Ask God and all things are possible. She would just say that to us over and over and over and over. It's amazing how that, it had such a profound effect on the way that I thought. So just being that voice of, you know, encouragement, and be the cheerleader, because the world's harsh. Be the cheerleader. And most of all, rest in Jesus. Step back from the crazy. Review. Rest.
This is my list of R's. Remember your goals. Revise them if needed.
Right. This can be an amazing year for growth in your relationships, your character, knowledge, wisdom. It's not all about we accomplished 6th grade math. 6th grade math is important. But you could get to the end of the year and say, our relationship is completely different.
Trash. Exactly.
Or trash. Or
trash if it's bad.
Or it could be really good. I mean, so you could get to the end of the year, and don't wait till you get to the end of the year to realize the relationship's trash. Does that make sense? You know? It's just important that you think about what is important for you. And remember that CHAP has a podcast. So we're on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and a few other places. I didn't even know there were that many places.
There's a bunch. There's like other little ones that I never heard of too, but
very impressive.
Anchor puts them everywhere.
So check us
out.
There.
So in 2 episodes, everybody, is our 100th episode.
Wow.
Awesome. I think we started just about 2 years ago. Right? October. So we're going to be having a party. And we're giving away away some books. Sam Tyler just wrote a book about burnout, about avoiding burnout. She said it's really short, so it's easy to read.
Easy to read.
Burnout
That's what we need.
So we're giving that
So
away.
I don't get burnout reading the book.
I know, exactly. And I think we're going to be giving away Christy Rucker's Simple Homeschool book. I have to check in with her on that.
Yeah.
And so you're going to want to tune in there, and we will just share some things that day of what we've done for 2 years.
That's right.
And next week we'll be back with something.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to hear about something
next week, let us know.
yeah, please tell us. We want to interact with you guys and answer your questions and whatever. I'm glad you guys are tuning in and giving comments and encouraging us and how we're trying to encourage you. 'Cause that's really helpful.
And hopefully this episode was an encouragement to you. I know it was a lot of great reminders for me. I need to constantly be reminded. So even if it's something you heard before, I hope it just encouraged you. You got this. You got this. Even if it was a hard day, it doesn't have to be a hard year. You got this. You can do it.
So you totally can.
Yeah. Well, this has been Chat with Chap. See you next week.
Everybody.